Hey, it's great having you guys up here on top of the hill. You made it. You made it. Now, we've installed some hay bales at the bottom of the hill, so when you go back down, you'll be a nice soft landing. But no, seriously, we're glad you guys are here. We're starting a brand new series, kind of a series on the DNA here at the Crossing, and we're going to talk a little bit about belong. If you've seen, at a lull in my message, when you're like looking around, you've probably seen this banner over here. But we're going to be talking about belong, become, and be bold. You all have the be bold part down because you came out today. So we know you guys could probably, say, I got that. Look at your person next to you, say, I'm bold. Bold. Yeah, okay. Anyway. So glad you're here. Just got to share a little bit. If you've been around here long enough, I share a lot about my life, and I'm very transparent. And I just want to share something that happened last summer that really has changed my life forever. Cindy and I were on our way up to a wedding. And it was a hot, humid, hazy day, unlike today, but normally like a normal Ohio Valley kind of summer day, hot, hazy, humid. And we were heading to a wedding, but we decided to take a risk. We decided to take a detour. We decided to go do something that we had actually thought about, but we never really thought we could. And so we actually put ourselves out there. And in doing so, I'm just going to tell you, I found a place of belonging unlike any belongingness I have ever felt before. I'd only heard about this, but now I tasted it. When we left this place, we headed up north as we were heading to the wedding. I just couldn't think, I just had this peace of mind of knowing that I'm in. I am in. I've made it. We made it, honey. Now, I can't speak for her, but I keep thinking the whole time, what took us so long? Why did we wait? Why did we wait? You see, before that day, I was an outsider just looking in. I just knew I'd be turned away. They weren't going to accept me as I was. But now I've never felt more privileged. I've never felt, as I said earlier, a stronger level of belongingness than I did on that hot, hazy, humid Saturday afternoon. Now, please understand what I'm about to tell you next. It's going to probably make some of you resent me. Some of you are going to be envious because I know a lot of you have maybe not experienced the same sense of belonging I did. So when I tell you this, please do not tune me out the rest of the message because you resent me. But Cindy and I joined Costco. Yeah, exactly. We now belong to Costco. Now, I can sense the tension with some of you right now. Don't be a hater. But I'll be honest with you. I never dreamed they would accept us. It's a very exclusive club. I just want you to know, I looked it up. There are only about 94 million people that are a part of this club, just 94. And Cindy and I are now a part of a couple people under, 2 to 100 million, give or take, people that have joined it. And don't just take my word for it. I've got the card right here. And it's got my face back in the back. And I'm just not any old member. I'm a Gold Star member. A Gold Star member at Costco, I know. And we were so welcomed in to this club that all we had to do was give them $60. For $60, we could be a part of this club. And I can't tell you the feeling of confidence I had of walking up to those sliding doors to the red-vested employee and being able to just whip out that card and say, I belong here. I am a member. And just know that they couldn't stop me for nothing because I belong. I gain access. I could spend as much money as I want to anything that's in that warehouse. Any product, I could get it. I could buy a package of 36, a roll of 36 ultra soft rolls of bath tissue. Now, for some of you, you may not think, what's the big deal? I could get toilet paper anywhere. Yeah, but most of those places, you only get 8 rolls or 12 rolls. Maybe that's it. But here, you can get 36 rolls. And they don't call it toilet paper at Costco. It's bath tissue. And there's a difference. There's a difference. And I belong there. And I've never felt such a greater sense of belonging than on that Saturday afternoon. As a matter of fact, I've been able, since we've joined there, to flash this card to just dare any red-vested employee to stop me exactly one other time. I've been there one other time, which probably explains why they sell 36 rolls of toilet paper, because it's been that long since I've been back. But it's amazing. Since we've been really little, since we were old enough to be able to scout out the people around us, we've had this longing for belonging. Now for you, maybe you could care less about being a member of Costco or Sam's Club. I'm a member of them as well, so let me go ahead and put that out there so, I don't offend the Sam's Club people. Maybe that's not your idea, but the reality is, I think all of us from a very, very young age have wanted to fit in. We've wanted to be in the crowd. We've wanted to be to make it and to fit in. I think we could all probably remember the butterflies that first day of school, whether it be the first day of the school for you, maybe kindergarten or first grade, or maybe it was the first day when you went into a new school, when you didn't know anybody. You could remember having that cafeteria tray in hand and scanning the cafeteria and looking and trying to measure by just appearances alone, which table will accept me? Which table do I have the greatest opportunity to be able to say, can I sit here and not feel like I stick out, or to be able to at least feel accepted? And if we're honest, we're really looking for the table that is the most empty, because we're so scared to death that we aren't going to belong. I think all of us have walked into situations where we felt uncomfortable and we felt like we really did not fit. Maybe it was just going to your spouse's company Christmas party. Maybe you had to go to the corporate party and you're the only one. You don't know anybody. They're all telling the inside jokes and they're laughing about what happened the other day or last week, or do you remember that? And you're just kind of there. Or maybe it's even been a high school reunion where, the spouse you married didn't go to your high school, so you have to go to their high school reunion, and you just don't know anybody and you just feel like you just stand out. You just want to fit in. Maybe you showed up someplace where you were underdressed, or you showed up someplace where you were overdressed. And, I've been at both. I've done both. Now, we've always said here at the Crossing that the only dress we require is that you wear some clothes. That's it. You just wear clothes here. But we've had a lot of people that have come in. We intentionally want you to relax. We intentionally want you to be comfortable. But you've been there. I remember back in the day growing up, going to church, I had to wear my Sunday finest. And if you weren't wearing your Sunday finest and you just came in wearing blue jeans or shorts, you just knew that person didn't get it. They didn't get the memo, because you're supposed to dress up. Here at the Crossing, pretty much from day one, let me just tell you, if you walk in a suit and tie, we're going to stare at you. Not because you don't belong. Trust me, you belong here, but it's because it's sort of like an oddity, like a unicorn in the lobby. If someone comes in a suit and tie, you're like, yeah, they hadn't got the message. We just don't do that. So, but you're scouting the room because you want to belong. You want to fit in. I heard two boys that were bragging. We do this a lot. That they were bragging about who moved the most times. And the one boy said, oh yeah, well, I've moved 3 times in 3 years. The other boy said, well, that's nothing. My family moved 5 times in the last year, but I found them every single time. Now, if you were to hear that little story, it is obvious that that young man did not have a real strong sense of belonging. And when it comes to moving, I will just say that if you were checking this church out for the very first time, this church has moved 4 times in its 7 years. We've been from Norla Manor to Batavia High School to Williamsburg High School to here up on the hill. And there was even times when the schools were canceled, we had to even relocate and move other places. But in all the times that we've moved, I can tell you here that we hope you find us. We want you to find us. And not only you, we say this all the time. We want you to bring your family. We want you to bring your friends. We want you to bring your coworkers. And we want you to find us. And we want them to find us. Now, I did say this, and I'll say it time and time again. You just don't find this place randomly. It's not like you're just heading out to the mall and drive by here and say, well, that's a cool church. Let's try that out next week. You've got to actually intentionally be coming here. And the only people who have found this church that I can tell you that's found it easily is either they were lost and they're like, oh, I didn't even know there was a church up here, or they can go online and follow Google Maps pretty well, or they're playing Pokemon Go. We've had quite a few people play Pokemon Go that you could tell they're the ones that are kind of weaving through the parking lot in a circle, and I've done it twice. I've walked up and said, hey, can I help you? And they roll down the window, and they're really sheepish and kind of embarrassed. They started giggling. I'm like, hey, seriously, you're allowed to turn around here, but do you need anything? They're like, we're playing Pokemon Go. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it. But apparently there's a Pokemon character running around up here on the hill. And some of you get your phones out, your app, and play. HUD and I were even thinking, what can we do to get one up here on the platform so people would come in and play Pokemon Go, maybe during the worship services on Sunday? I don't know. But that's how people find this. But we want you to find this place. And we want you to invite other family members and friends and coworkers to find this place as well. But we don't want you to find us here just because we think we're all that. We want you to bring people to find us here because of who we're trying to direct you to. We want people to find Jesus. And that is why we exist. That is the whole reason we as a church exist. If it's not about Christ, then we shouldn't even be meeting. And so we want you to find us, and we want other people to find us, not because of us, but because of who is the leader, who is truly the owner of this church. And when I say church, I'm not talking buildings. I'm talking people. And so we want you to bring people to find Jesus. But we also want people to come because we have a message to convey. We have a message that we want people to hear. And this message is for the people who were picked last on the playground. It's for the people who went solo to homecoming or to prom. This is for those who are struggling right now in your marriages. We're a church that we have people who are divorced. We have people whose kids aren't speaking to them right now. This is a message for those who are confused, filled with doubt, and who worry about everything. Everything. The message I want to talk about today is for those who are broke, who are addicted, for those who are dealing and fighting sexual sin in your life. This is a message for those who are messed up, who are imperfect, who wake up in cold sweats in the middle of the night and can't understand why they feel so overwhelmed, so panicky. This is a message for those who are sick, who are forgetful all of a sudden, or who are grieving. This message is for the one who has a history that you'd rather forget, or the one who's still paying for the consequences of your past decisions even today. This message is for those who feel like a fraud, a fake, a phony, a hypocrite. This message is for those who sin. And this message is for those who feel like an outsider on the outside looking in. You see, this message I have to bring to you today is simple. And that is, you belong here. Yes, I said you. You belong here. You would not believe the number of people I have invited to come be a part of the crossing, to just check us out, that have asked me if the roof line has been reinforced, because if they showed up, it would collapse on them. There are so many people who feel like, for whatever reason, that they are an outsider who can't get in, shouldn't be in, or are looking in. And I cannot convey it enough, and I need your help, because you probably can't convey it enough. But you belong here. They belong here. But here's the second thing I want to say in this part. If it's hard for you to imagine that you belong here in a church, then this is going to be even harder for you to grasp. And that is, not only do you belong here, but you belong to Him. You, yeah, you. I am talking to you. You belong to Him. And that is so hard for us to even imagine. It is so hard for us to wrap our minds around that. And so, as I said, we're talking through our DNA, and the first thing we're going to talk about is belong, and next week we're going to talk about become, and then the final week we'll talk about being bold. But I want to start with just the Crossing family. And when I say the Crossing family, you've been around here long enough to know it, but if you're here checking us out for the first time, first of all, kudos for you coming and checking out a church on a day like that, all right? Just coming to church at all on a day like today. But the reality is, we are a messed up church led by messed up people, just trying to introduce you to the only one who can clean up the mess, and that is Jesus Christ. That is who we are, and you belong here. You belong. Nicky Gumbel said this: church is not an organization you join, it's a family where you belong, a home where you are loved, and a hospital where you find healing. I don't know where we ever got in our mind that a church has it all together. I don't know where that, well, I know where that lie came from. Came from the one who wants you to not be a part of the family of God. A church is not perfect. It's far from it, because it's made up of people like me, you. And it's a hospital where you find healing. Romans chapter 11, verses 30 through 32. And I'm going to read it from Eugene Peterson's The Message translation. And the Message translation is kind of a translation where he takes the word-for-word translation and then he tries to put it in common contemporary language. And so I just want to make that clear. This is a paraphrase, but sometimes I just love to use the Message because Eugene does a fantastic job of conveying what the scripture's saying here. And so in verse 30, this is what he says. There was a time not so long ago when you were on the outs with God. But when the Jews slammed the door on him and things opened up for you, now they are on the outs, but with the door held wide open for you, they also have a way back in. In one way or another, God makes sure that we all experience what it means to be outside so that he can personally open the door and welcome us back in. If you've ever felt like you were on the outs with God, then welcome home. If you've ever felt like you don't fit, you don't belong, then welcome. Because you belong here. And the reason I can say that with such confidence is because I belong here. And if I belong here, then you belong here. I say this all the time. A lot of times you come in, you compare a pastor to, here's what you do. You look at the pastor and then you look at your life. And what you're doing when you're doing that is you are comparing the 100% you know about you to the 10% you know about your pastor. And that's a pretty broad comparison. You belong here because I belong here. You belong here because everybody that's sitting around you would probably say, I don't know if I belong here or not, but I'm here, so you belong here because I belong here. We are surrounded by people who probably don't believe it, but believe it. You belong here. And you can be sure of that. Brene Brown, who is an author and has probably one of the top 5 most watched TED Talks ever. I think it's logged over 30 million people have watched this. She's kind of a relationship expert. And this is what she said. Brene Brown says that humans are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love, to be loved, and to belong. Belonging is an innate human desire to be a part of something that's larger than us. But belonging, as much as we're hardwired for it, isn't as easy as it would seem. It actually takes hard work. You can't just simply show up or sign up to truly belong. But yet we desperately want to belong to something bigger than ourselves. And we want this so badly that a lot of times we'll do whatever it takes to achieve that. But what we do instead of belonging is we just try to fit in. And she goes on to describe there is a difference. Fitting in just is a hollow substitute for belonging and actually erodes true belonging. She says it this way. If I get to be me, I belong. If I have to be like you, I fit in. Belonging is being somewhere where you want to be and they want you. Fitting in is being somewhere where you want to be, but they don't care one way or the other. Belonging is being accepted for you. Fitting in is being accepted for being like everyone else. And when you look at it that way, there's a big difference between belonging and fitting in. And I want to say it again. You belong here. You belong here. So don't settle for fitting in. Or don't just try to sign up and not make any attempt at all. Because you really do have to make at least some sort of attempt to belong here. I came across this little list of ways to avoid belonging, and I kind of took it and kind of broke it down to make it a little bit more applicable for our context. So if you're someone who's thinking, I don't want to belong, I would rather not belong, I want to avoid belonging, then this list is for you. Because I'm going to kind of give you some hints of how you could avoid belonging at a church. Here's the first one. Keep conversations short. You're busy. You have a lot to deal with in your life. If you talk to someone, you might actually get close to them. And if you talk to someone, you might actually have to invest some time and energy with that person. So here's the thing. Don't talk to anyone. And if you do, limit it to just talking about the weather. Because the weather only takes about 30 seconds. So just talk about the weather and move right on. Do not talk about the Bengals. Because if you talk about the Bengals, it'll lead into a 5-minute conversation that will end very depressingly, and then you'll have to have counseling and might find that same person in counseling with you, and then you'll have to get to know them. So if you don't want to belong, keep your conversations short. Stick with the weather. Here's another one. Always sit in your assigned seat. By always sitting in the same seat, you always sit around the same people. And these people know the deal. They know you don't spend a lot of time talking with one another. They keep it to 30-second conversations. This also keeps you from having to venture out and meet new people. And while you're venturing out and meeting new people, your seat might get stolen while you're gone, and you'll be stuck with new people, and you might have to get to know them. So whatever you do, always sit in your assigned seat. That's the best way of not belonging. Here's another one. Avoid new people. Avoid new people. It's one thing to have to deal with the people you know, but then you got to see new people, and it's hard to remember people's names. So do not go up to any new people. Make no eye contact. Just move to your assigned seat. If you're having a problem with this, here's what I tell you. Put blindfold on your kids and basically do this. Just pretend like you're reenacting the Bird Box and just blindfold and walk straight on in the worship center and avoid all eye contact with anybody you do not know. If you do that, then I guarantee you're probably not going to belong. Here's another one. Come in late. And do not overlook the beauty of this one. If you come in late, you totally avoid the 30-second conversation because people are now sitting in there and you don't have to talk to them at all. And as a bonus, you avoid new people, which makes it easier. Here's another one. Leave immediately after the service or even early if you can. This has the similar benefits to coming in late, but there's the bonus of getting on the road quicker and beating people to Frisch's or Cracker Barrel. So if you leave early, you don't have to get to know people, and you can get to the restaurant quicker, which in that case, if you come late and leave early, you can attend the same church for 20 years and never know anybody. That's winning, folks. That's winning right there, right? Here's another one. Don't accept any invitations to a meal. Because breaking bread, whenever you bring food into it, it causes people to open up a little bit. And you do not want to break bread with people, because then you'll actually start to have conversations and you have to get to know each other, and then you get off topic and you start talking about things that take more than 30 seconds and so on. So just fake a stomach ulcer, tell them you got plans, and don't go eat with anybody, because there you might actually get to know them better, and before you know it, you're belonging. And we don't want that, right? Here's another one. Make sure that this is your default answer to every question that is ever asked to you, is just say, really good. Say that with me. Really good. Say it again. How's the family? How's things going at the job? How's your golf game? How's the preaching at the crossing? Okay, how's the weather, right? You want to go to the weather or the Bengals. I get it. But basically, if that's always your default answer, here's the great thing about that. Here's the beauty of always saying good or really good. It's people actually might believe that you're good or really good. And then that way, they don't get to know that you're really screwed up. And you've got some struggles and some problems and things going on in your life. And so it's just best to stick with good or really good. Because when you do that, then you won't let people know that things really aren't that good. Things suck right now in my life. But if I always answer really good, you'd never know that. So just say, really good. You'll avoid community that way. You'll avoid conversation. You'll avoid letting people see the real you. Because they actually still might like you in spite of that. And then that gets kind of scary. Here's the nuclear option. And this is, if you don't want to go through all that trouble I just said, if you don't want to belong, here's the nuclear option. You just go straight to this one. Just never show up. If you never show up, guess what? You'll never belong. So just don't show up. I can tell you this, of all those steps, that one has the 100% satisfaction guarantee. That if you don't show up, you'll never belong. And so, in all seriousness, you do belong here. But in order to experience belonging at the crossing, you do have to pursue it. Whereas Jud Wilhite said, if it doesn't challenge you, then it's unlikely to change you. So if you're not feeling challenged in places of your life, then there's a good likelihood you're not going to experience any change. It's just always going to be the same. So you belong here. But even more important than that, you belong to Him. You belong to God. Psalm 100 says this: shout with joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before Him singing with joy. And why do you do this? Why would you shout to the Lord with joy? Why would you worship him with gladness? Why would you come before him singing with joy? Why would you even acknowledge that the Lord is God? It's because he made us and we are his. If you let that sink in, that he made us, and I am his, we are his, that we are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving. Go into the courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name, for the Lord is good. His unfailing love continues forever, and his faithfulness continues to each generation. You see, we enter into his courts with praise and thanksgiving because I was made by him. I was created by him. I belong to him. I'm a sheep in his pasture. And so are you. We belong. But here's the problem. We don't buy that because of our shame and our sin and our lack of faith. We doubt that he would ever want to claim us. We doubt that we could ever belong to him. Again, Brene Brown found that after researching thousands of people in interviews, she says there was only one variable that separated the people who have a strong sense of love and belonging and the people who were really struggling for it. And here it was. The people who had a strong sense of love and belonging believe that they are worthy of love and belonging. That's it. They believe they're worthy. And here's the problem. We have a hard time believing because of our lack of faith, because of our doubt, because of our shame. We have a hard time believing that we could ever belong to him. But we belong to him. We struggle with it. There's shame. Isn't that what first created the fractured relationship? The very beginning with God is Adam and Eve did what God told them not to do. And as soon as they did it, their eyes were open and all of a sudden they were ashamed. And their first thing was shame, and then it was fear, and then it was let's hide. And so there was shame, fear, and isolation, all because they sinned. And isn't that what happens? Our sin drives a wedge not only between us and God, but a lot of times our sin drives a wedge between the people that our sin impacts. And now all of a sudden we have a problem with our relationships because of our sin. And that's exactly what happened. It opened their eyes, it brought shame. There was never this longing for belonging before they took that bite. There was never this sense of longing for belonging. There was never this sense of, I just don't belong, I don't fit in here, until they took the bite. And ever since then, we have been longing for belonging ever since then. But we were hardwired to know that we are his. He created us, and you and I belong to him. But we just can't wrap our mind around it. We just can't believe that. We're too ashamed. And so because of that, we feel like an outsider to his church. And I'm talking about globally now. I'm not talking about just the crossing. We feel like an outsider to his church. We don't feel like we belong. But we also feel like we are an outsider and that we cannot belong with him. That's what sin does. It separates us in so many ways. When others sin against us, what do? We get disgusted. We get disappointed. We don't want to deal with them. When we sin against others, they don't want to deal with us. They get disgusted with us. And when we sin in general, we know we aren't right with him. And so sin is alienating. It is divisive. And it's so hard for us, because of our sin, to even believe that God would want us, that we belong. I came across this story, and it's a great way of illustrating our belonging to God. And so I just want you to kind of listen to this story written by Timothy Paul Jones. And I think it kind of gives you an idea, because right now it's wrestling around in your head. You're like, I cannot belong. I don't belong. I'm not worthy. I cannot belong. He writes, I never dreamed that taking a child to Disney World could be so difficult, or that such a trip could teach me so much about God's outrageous grace. Our middle daughter had been previously adopted by another family. Now, I'm sure this couple had the best of intentions, but they never quite integrated the adopted child into their family of biological children. And after a couple of rough years, they dissolved the adoption, and we ended up welcoming an 8-year-old girl into our home. For one reason or another, whenever our daughter's previous family vacationed at Disney World, they took their biological children with them, but they left their adopted daughter with a family friend. Usually, at least in this child's mind, this happened because she did something wrong, and so therefore she was prohibited from having her presence to go on that trip. And so by the time we adopted our daughter, she had seen many pictures of Disney World, and she had heard about the rides and the characters and the parades, but when it came to passing through the gates of the Magic Kingdom, she had always been the one left on the outside, dreaming to get in. But once I found out about this, I made plans to take her to Disney World. The next time there was going to be a speaking engagement in the Southeast, we're going to plan to take the family to Disney World. He says, I thought I had mastered the Disney World drill. I knew from previous experiences that the prospect of seeing cast members in oversized mouse and duck costumes somehow turns children into squirming bundles of emotional instability. What I didn't expect was the prospect of visiting this dream world would produce a stream of downright devilish behavior in our newest daughter. In the month leading up to our trip to the Magic Kingdom, she stole food when a simple request would have been enough. She lied when it had been so much easier for her to tell the truth. She would whisper insults crafted to hurt her older sister as deeply as possible. And as the days on the calendar moved closer to the trip, her mutinies multiplied. A couple of days before our family headed to Florida, I pulled our daughter into my lap to talk through her latest escapade. And she looked at me and said, I know what you're going to do. You're not taking me to Disney World, are you? He says, the thought hadn't crossed my mind, but her downward spiral suddenly started to make some sense. She knew she couldn't earn her way into the Magic Kingdom. She had tried and failed that test several times before. So she was living in a way that placed her as far as possible from the most magical place on earth. He says, I'm embarrassed to admit that in that moment, I was tempted to turn her fear to my own advantage and say, well, if you don't start behaving better, you're right, we won't take you. But by the grace of God, I did not. Instead, I asked her, is this trip something we're doing as a family? She nodded with her eyes glistening. Are you a part of this family? She nodded again. Then you're going with us. Sure, there may be some consequences to help you remember what's right and wrong, but you're a part of our family, and we're not leaving you behind. He says, I'd like to say that her behaviors grew so much better after that moment, but they didn't. She pretty much spiraled out of control at every hotel and rest stop along the way to Disney. But still, we headed to Disney World the day we had promised, which was a typical Disney day, overpriced tickets, overpriced meals, and lots of long lines, mingled with just enough manufactured joy that you might consider going again sometime. In our hotel room that evening, a very different child emerged. She was exhausted, a little weepy at times, but her month-long facade of rebellion faded. So when bedtime rolled around, I prayed with her, I held her, and I asked her, so how was your first day at Disney World? And she closed her eyes and snuggled down into her stuffed unicorn. And after a few moments, she opened her eyes ever so slightly. And she said, Daddy, I finally got to go to Disney World. But it wasn't because I was good. It was because I was yours. You see, we don't get to spend eternity with him because I am good. It is because I am his. That is God's outrageous grace. That is the outrageous love he has for you. I belong to him not because I am good, because I will never be good enough. It is because I am his. You belong to him not because of your goodness, but because of him. That's grace. And we achieve it only by him. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 3 and 6. How blessed is God, and what a blessing he is. He's the Father of our Master Jesus Christ and takes us to the high places of blessing in him. Long before he laid down the earth's foundations, he had us, you, me, us in mind, and had settled on us as the focus of his love, to be made whole and holy by his love. Long, long ago, he decided to adopt us into his family through Jesus Christ. What a pleasure he took in planning this. He wanted us to enter into the celebration of his lavish gift giving by the hand of his beloved Son. So we don't get to enter, we don't get to be claimed by him because of us. We belong to God because of Jesus. Which is why this church exists, because of Jesus. And so you belong here. But more importantly than that, stop listening to the lies of this world. You belong to him, but it's not because of you being good. It's because of him, and you are his. So as I said it, you belong here, and you belong to him, but you have to be willing to pursue that belonging. You have to stop trying to avoid it. You have to make a step in order to not just fit in, but to actually belong. So let's start first with you belong here. If you've been here for a while and checking us out, you belong here. So what does that look like? Maybe for you, it's just like Casey's little pre-thing. I don't know how she drew all those pictures so well, but it's next steps. What is your next step to belonging? There are community groups that meet all over this region, different nights of the week. It's an opportunity for you to talk a little bit more about something other than the weather. And so you can go and sign up, and we'll get you plugged into a community group. There are lots of opportunities to serve here. And I'm not talking about here in the church. Yes, there's opportunities there too. We need people that can work with our children. We need people that would audition or try out for the stage. And we need people that will clean this place and fix things when they go down. We need people all over the place. But more than that, we are trying to make an impression for Jesus Christ in this community. So there's always opportunities to get off of this property and go. And so there's nothing like serving with one another. Rolling up your sleeves and just serve with one another. And so maybe you need to go the next steps and say, I want to be a part of that go team, that outreach team. So the next time they need and they're going and they're doing something, they'll give me a call. If you belong here, then I know you know people who don't. And so maybe for you, it's time to start inviting and investing here. So that might be your step. But even more important than that, you belong to him. I just don't know if you've come to that conclusion yet or not. And so for you, the question I ask you is, he has given you that free gift of Jesus Christ. Have you received that gift? Have you accepted him? Do you believe? Will you confess of your sins and repent and turn away from them and follow him? Will you be obedient in Christ and be baptized? Maybe that's something you've been putting off. But you belong to him. Maybe you're someone who needs to start growing in your relationship with him just by reading this. And if you don't want to read this, there's a YouVersion app that has all the different translations, and you can carry that smartphone with you everywhere you go, and you can read it. But are you in the Word? You belong to him. Are you spending time with him? Are you praying? Are you journaling? Are you doing that? You know, find something, just one thing to say, I'm going to pursue that. I know it's a challenge, but unless I'm being challenged, I won't change. So I'm going to do that. So before you leave and we stand and we sing, during that time, you spend some time and you look at where you're at. Whether it's I belong here, whether I belong to him, you look at that and you decide, you make a decision, you take a step. You are here for a reason. I don't know why you're here, because with the weather out there, there have been a whole lot of excuses to not show up, but you're here for a reason. So what are you going to do? How are you going to respond? Because you belong. You belong. Pray with me. God, I thank you so much that before this world was formed, you already had us in mind. That you love us. God, our shame, our doubts, our sin creates this wedge, this gap that we cannot bridge on our own. But you knew that, and so you gave us a way when there was no way. And that way is through your Son, Jesus Christ. It is through him and him alone that we are made good. Because it's through him that you don't see Kenny White standing before you. You see him standing in front of you on my behalf. And it is your Holy Spirit that is interceding on my behalf. So God, I just pray for each and every individual in this room that they hear your voice, whether it be thundering loud or whether it be a still small voice, that they hear it and they respond. And I pray this in the name above all names, the name that makes it possible for us to belong to you, the name of Jesus. Amen.
As we sing this last song, there'll be people over here to my left and to my right. If you would like someone to pray with you, let me just encourage you also in this, that like when God calls us out, it's scary, right? When he calls you out to say, I want you to do whatever it might be. It may be something that Pastor Kenny mentioned. It may be something totally different. But when he calls us out, sometimes it's scary. But all he's asking us to do is to take that first step, and he'll handle the rest. So as we stand and we sing this, just know that if God is calling you and he's speaking to you this morning, just take that first step and allow him to take it from there. Would y'all stand and sing this out?
You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep, my faith will stand. Abounds in deepest waters, your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you've never failed and you won't start now. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours and you are mine. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet and keep my eyes above the waves. My soul will rest in your embrace. Sing it out.
Father, as we go out into our week, would you be with us? Would you give us the encouragement, Father, to take that step, whatever step that is, however big, however small. Give us the encouragement to know that you are with us in that step, and that even if we're not sure what is beyond, have the trust to know that you are there to pick us up. Thank you for being with us and meeting with us here. Bring us back safe next week. And it's in your son's name, Jesus, that we pray. You guys say? Amen. See you next week. Be safe.